Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are not we're not here to talk about tradition or sentimental stories from Rivalry Week.
No, we're moving past the narrative.
Exactly. It is the final CFB Saturday slate, week 14, and we're treating all this source material, the injury reports, the metrics, the line movements, like we're in a high-stakes war room.
That's right. Our mission is really clear. We are isolating the cold, hard data to find the highest probability outcomes.
So for you, the listener, just so you know what we're working with, we've compiled 3 highly respected analyst takes on the 13 most critical matchups for today.
And, as always happens in these high leverage weeks, their data is fractured. They have some significant disagreements on the side on the total.
So we're not just summarizing here.
No, not at all. We are engaging in a rigorous dialectical process. We're pitting Analyst A's logic directly against Analyst B's.
And if one argument relies on subjective stuff like momentum or just the general talent composite,
And the other relies on advanced metrics. We're talking yards after contact, strength of schedule, critical scheme breakdowns. We are letting the quantifiable evidence win. We are hunting for the sharp card.
and we have a phenomenal stack of intelligence today. Sources covering everything, detailed injury reports, SOS validation, line movements that are signaling where the professional money is going.
Not to mention complex scheme breakdowns and even some really high conviction anytime touchdown probabilities.
This is the weekend that sets the stage for the CFP, and the market is moving violently. We need to focus on those contested games, right, where the opinion is fractured.
That's where the value is born. It's where the data gives us a clear, metrics-driven tiebreaker.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's jump straight into the biggest conflict on the entire board, the game that carries a critical impact rating of 10, the highest profile, highest leverage game of the year.
Okay, let's unpack this rivalry. We're talking Ohio State, the consensus CFP #1, traveling to Ann Arbor.
To face a Michigan team that is, statistically inferior but has really owned this matchup recently, sitting at number 15.
And the line has settled around OSU minus 10.5. I mean, that is a massive number for a rivalry game.
It is. And Analyst One is making a really strong case that Ohio State is poised to just crush this number.
And his reasoning is based entirely on health and personnel.
Completely. It's the traditional, logical argument any talent scout would make. Analyst One's whole stance is that Ohio State is fully reinforced at the absolute perfect time.
With the receivers coming back.
Exactly. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, 2 explosive playmakers, they are back from those nagging soft tissue injuries, and they're expected to run a full slate of snaps.
Which basically makes their passing game
fully operational. And if they can pass effectively, the logic holds that Michigan just cannot keep up.
And that's compounded by the Michigan injury report, right?
Yeah.
Analyst One is arguing the Wolverines are seriously crippled.
Oh, absolutely. On both sides of the ball. The biggest loss is running back Justice Haynes. He's gone for the season.
He was their power back, averaging what, over 7 yards a carry?
A phenomenal 7.1 yards per carry and 10 touchdowns. His absence forces a major offensive shift away from what they want to do.
And then on defense.
Critically on defense, safety Rod Moore is out. That compromises their secondary depth against those returning Ohio State star receivers.
So Analyst One just sees this as a pure scheme and personnel mismatch.
He does. He's projecting OSU 24, Michigan 18, and he's confidently endorsing the OSU minus 9.5 cover. And that logic is perfectly sound if football is played indoors on a 72-degree day.
And here is where the war room debate really begins. Because Analyst 2 throws a massive environmental variable on the table.
Environmental force multiplier.
And this is why this game has that critical impact rating of 10.
This is the dialectic right here. We are talking about severe winter conditions in Ann Arbor. Heavy snow is projected, temperatures at 26 degrees, and sustained 10 to 15 mile per hour winds.
So Analyst 2's argument is that the weather just nullifies the personnel advantage.
Completely. And you have to understand the mechanism of that. Why does snow and wind hurt a dominant passing game so much that it flips an entire betting strategy?
Right, it's not just about visibility.
No, it's friction and timing. The slick ball dramatically increases the difficulty of every single snap, every exchange, every catch. The wind messes with the deep ball trajectory.
So Analyst 1 says the return of Smith and Tate makes the passing game dominant.
And Analyst 2 counters that heavy snow, compresses the scoring variance. It compromises passing efficiency so much that it just negates Ohio State's primary schematic advantage.
Which is those explosive downfield routes and the RPOs.
Exactly. You are forced to operate in a low-risk, low-reward environment.
But wait, I have to challenge that a little. We've seen 5-star quarterbacks make unbelievable throws in these conditions.
Yeah.
Doesn't superior individual talent often overcome poor environmental conditions, especially if the defense is compromised by injury? Michigan's defense is short a safety, Moore, and a key linebacker, Houseman, as Analyst 3 noted.
That's a great point, but the data on scoring variance in severe weather it's unforgiving. While a star QB might make one or two heroic throws, the net effect across 60 minutes is almost always negative for a spread offense.
So it's about consistency, not just the highlight plays.
Precisely. Analyst 2 reminds us that this environment inherently favors a gap scheme run game and a low-scoring slog.
Which is exactly the physical trench warfare identity Michigan is built for.
Even without Haynes, the conditions strip away the ability for Ohio State to achieve that explosive multi-score margin that you need to cover, minus 10.5.
So if the weather forces both teams to be run-heavy, Michigan gets to play its preferred style, and their defensive injuries in the secondary become way less relevant.
That's it. The field itself becomes the great equalizer. Analyst 2 projects OSU 24, Michigan 13. A superior team winning but failing to cover.
And he's comfortable taking Michigan plus 10.5.
With an 8 out of 10 conviction. He sees the weather as a 3 to 4 point spread adjustment, all of it favoring the physical underdog.
Okay, let's bring in Analyst 3 to see where the consensus ultimately leans. He projects a score of OSU 27-17, so he's favoring the OSU minus 10.5 cover.
But look at the confidence. It's a low 6 out of 10. He highlights the depth loss for Michigan at linebacker and safety, but that lower confidence rating. That's the giveaway.
And when we synthesize all these arguments, the market itself seems to confirm that skeptical, weather-based approach.
You have to pay attention to the money. The line movement here is massive.
Tell us about it. A 3-point differential is huge for a rivalry game.
The line opened high, around Ohio State minus 13.5, and that was based on the talent composite and the injury disparity that Analyst 1 highlighted.
But it's been bet down.
Dramatically. It's shed 3 full points to land at minus 10.5. That movement is professional money accumulating on Michigan at those higher numbers, plus 13.5, plus 12.5.
So the market action directly validates Analyst 2's conviction that the weather variable is more important than the returning Ohio State personnel.
It does. Betting on Ohio State at minus 10.5, based solely on the return of those star wide receivers, is the definition of a narrative fallacy. It's square thinking.
You're ignoring the critical, non-negotiable variable that nullifies speed and timing the heavy snow.
Correct. The consensus sharp lean here is anti-favorite. The conditions reduce passing efficiency for the explosive team, and they compress the scoring variance. It makes it very, very difficult for Ohio State to get that multi-score lead. Michigan plus 10.5, backed by the weather and the sharp money signal, is the high probability metrics validated outcome.
Let's pivot to the SEC then, the Iron Bowl. Alabama is in a hostile environment fighting for their CFP life against an Auburn team fighting for bowl eligibility.
Another rivalry where the line has moved toward the underdog. It shifted from Alabama minus 7.5 all the way down to minus 5.5. The total is low, 46.5.
The initial impulse here for the casual bettor is always just to rely on the brand, right?
Always. Just bet Alabama because they are Alabama and they have the superior composite talent. Analyst 1 and Analyst 3 both sort of fall into this camp.
They both have Bama covering.
They do. 24-20 and 27-20 respectively. But look at the confidence. Analyst 1 gives it a low 5 out of 10, hedging with the Auburn chaos element narrative, which is pure subjectivity.
And Analyst 3 is relying on Alabama's O-line to eventually gain an advantage, projecting that Bama slowly pulls away.
That's the textbook definition of relying on reputation over recent data. We need the cold metrics to break this die.
And Analyst 2 provided the critical failure points for Alabama. So where does the data expose Bama in the trenches?
This is the centerpiece of the anti-Bama argument, and it rests on two just stunning metrics concerning their run game and efficiency.
Okay.
First, Analyst 2 points out that Alabama ranks a shocking 122nd nationally in yards after contact in the run game.
Wait, 122nd?
Yeah.
In the SEC? That is almost dead last among all 133 FBS teams.
It's astounding.
Explain for the listener, what does yards after contact really tell us about a rushing attack?
It's the measure of physical effort. It's power running ability. Yards after contact is what the running back earns after the initial block fails or after first contact is made by a defender.
So it's about breaking tackles, creating your own yardage.
Exactly. A top-tier running team should rank highly because their backs are breaking tackles, they're falling forward, they're grinding out yardage when the scheme isn't perfect. Alabama's 122nd rank shows a profound systemic softness.
So they are completely reliant on perfect blocking.
Almost exclusively.
Yeah.
The runners are not salvaging broken plays or consistently generating power yardage through contact.
And if their blocking fails even slightly, the play just goes nowhere. And now they're running into a defensive buzzsaw.
That's the other side of the coin. They are facing an Auburn defense ranked 4th nationally in yards before contact allowed.
So Auburn stops you before you can even get started.
Their defensive front is elite at generating immediate disruption, stopping runs at the line of scrimmage, preventing backs from even reaching the second level untouched. So if Alabama is soft at generating yards after contact, and Auburn is elite at preventing yards before contact,
It's a head-on schematic collision that Bama just cannot win on the ground.
which means they will be forced into one-dimensional, predictable passing situations.
And if they're forced into a passing-only attack, the whole thing starts to ripple. The offensive line, which analysts 3 thought would prevail, now faces aggressive Auburn defensive fronts on pure dropbacks. No play action, no run fake hesitation.
And that's where turnovers and sacks happen. It's a critical implication, but of course Auburn also has to score.
Right. They need to generate offense against a talented Bama defense to make this cover work.
And Analyst 2's data speaks to that too. He highlights Bama's defensive vulnerability to mobile quarterbacks.
What's the metric there?
A dismal 127th in opponent rush explosiveness allowed. They are terrible at containing explosive rushing plays, especially from dual-threat quarterbacks.
And Auburn's QB, Deuce Knight, is exactly that type of weapon.
Precisely. If Auburn commits to the read option, QB draws, designed runs, they can generate big plays and, critically, shorten the game by keeping Bama's offense on the sidelines.
So the metrics paint this picture where Alabama's run game is completely stifled by Auburn's elite front, forcing Bama to pass under duress.
While Auburn exploits Bama's tendency to give up explosive runs to their dual-threat quarterback,
That is the more skeptical and therefore the sharper argument.
it is. Analyst 2 concludes Alabama 24, Auburn 21, and he's taking Auburn plus 5.5 with a commanding 9 out of 10 conviction.
And when you synthesize it all, the narrative of Bama is just severely undercut by those 2 specific damning metrics.
The 122nd in YAC, the 127th in rush explosiveness allowed, and the line movement from minus 7.5 down to minus 5.5 just validates this skeptical buy signal on Auburn. You follow the quantitative mismatch.
Let's talk about a line that professional action completely flipped. This signals the clearest public versus sharp divide on the entire card. Tennessee hosting Vanderbilt.
And the public loves the favorite here.
Of course.
It's a textbook example of following the dollars, not the tickets. The line opened Tennessee minus 2.5. The public, fueled by Tennessee's name recognition and the rivalry, has poured in.
What are the numbers on that?
Analyst 2 reports that 62% of the tickets are on Tennessee. The average person sees a 9-2 Vanderbilt team and just assumes they are playing over their head.
But the line moved dramatically to Vandy plus 3 or even plus 3.5. That 3-point shift tells a very different story about who is driving the market.
It absolutely does. Analyst 2 reports that 61% of the total handle, the actual dollars wagered, the big bets, is on Vanderbilt plus 3.
A quintessential sharp play.
It is. The recreational bettors bet tickets on the favorite. The professionals accumulate bankroll on the undervalued underdog.
But hold on a second. We're talking rivalry week.
Yeah.
We know this weekend brings in recreational bettors with huge bankrolls who bet favorites just because they're fans or they believe in the brand.
That's true.
How can we be certain that this handle movement isn't just 1 or 2 huge bets by someone who isn't actually sharp?
That's a fair challenge, and this is where the metrics have to validate the money. If the money was moving on a bad team, we would disregard it. But the sharp action here is validated by Vandy's true power rating.
Which requires us to look past the 9-2 record and examine strength of schedule.
Exactly. Analyst 2's SOS analysis ranks Vanderbilt at number 5 nationally in strength of schedule.
Number 5 in the country. That is a profound finding.
It is. A 9-2 record achieved against the 5th toughest schedule in the country means this team is absolutely battle-tested, and they are legitimate. Their ranking is earned, not inflated by weak opponents. They can compete with Tennessee.
That's a key piece of information the public misses. They see the name Vanderbilt and the record, but they don't see the unforgiving data that Vandy's roster has been forged against elite competition all season long.
And furthermore, their scheme is tailored to counter the explosive high-tempo offenses like Tennessee's.
How so?
Their offense, led by the high-efficiency QB Diego Pavia, ranks third in the SEC in third down conversions. That ability to sustain drives and move the chains allows them to shorten the game.
Keep Tennessee's explosive offense on the sideline. Control the clock.
It's a direct antidote to a shootout. And Analyst 3 actually predicts Vandy to win outright, projecting a high-variant shootout of Vandy 35-31 and favoring the Vandy plus 2.5 cover.
So when you have 2 out of 3 analysts favoring the underdog, and it's driven by the professional money signal and validated by 2 key metrics, top 5 SOS and elite third down efficiency, you just have to align with the data.
You do. Analyst 1's preference for Tennessee's experience is the contradictory point we have to reject. The highest probability outcome aligns with the sharp consensus. Vanderbilt plus 2.5. This is our clearest and highest conviction market signal of the day.
Let's move quickly through a few more crucial spots where metrics completely override historical tendencies, or these low-confidence picks, starting with LSU versus Oklahoma. The line is OU minus 11.5, with an incredibly low total of 36.5.
This game is defined by a personnel and scheme mismatch that guarantees a specific type of failure for LSU.
And Analyst 1's score prediction is really weird here.
It is OU 17, LSU 14. That suggests a tight defensive battle where LSU would cover easily. Yet Analyst 1 oddly pivots and picks OU to cover, admitting it's a thin cover with only a 4 out of 10 confident.
That contradictory thinking is immediately suspect.
Especially when Analysts 2 and 3 are projecting blowout scores, 24-6 and 24-10, just crushing that minus 11.5 number.
So why such a catastrophic difference in projection?
It's the injury cascade failure. LSU's offensive line is decimated. Their starting center, Braylon Moore, is out for the season. Warry Williams, a critical tackle, is doubtful.
So they are playing with a severely compromised backup unit that lacks cohesion and high-level experience.
And they're facing Oklahoma's defense, which leads the entire nation in sacks with 41.
So we have a patchwork, depth-depleted offensive line facing the single best pass-rushing unit in the country. That is a tactical nightmare.
It ensures immediate negative consequences. The lack of protection guarantees pressure, which leads to hurried throws, turnovers, and crucially, an inability to convert key third downs.
So the low total is supported, but the spread has to be covered.
Exactly. The pressure will force LSU into punts, missed field goals, short possessions. This matchup mismatch validates Analyst 2 and 3's blowout projection. We discard Analyst 1's low confidence and contradictory score prediction. The severe injury versus elite pass rush metrics make Oklahoma minus 11.5 the undeniable sharp play. LSU just lacks the necessary personnel in the trenches to survive this.
Next, the Palmetto Bowl. Clemson versus South Carolina. This line saw one of the most compelling flips of the week. It opened Clemson minus 2.5.
And massive sharp money moved it entirely to South Carolina minus 2.5, a 5-point swing.
That 5-point swing is deafening.
It is. Analyst 3, he's clinging to the rivalry volatility, takes Clemson plus 2.5 with a low 5 out of 10 confidence. Analyst 2, however, takes South Carolina minus 2.5 with a 9 out of 10 conviction.
And we have to understand why a 4-7 team is now favored over a 6-5 team.
It all comes back to the unforgiving data of strength of schedule. Analyst 2's rationale is entirely SOS-based validation. South Carolina, despite its 4-7 record, has played the second toughest schedule in the nation.
They have been in the fire against the top teams in the country.
Their power rating is validated because their losses came against legitimate playoff contenders, and their roster has been battle-tested under immense pressure.
Whereas Clemson's 6-5 record is inflated against weaker competition, making their talent appear better than it is when facing real, pressure-packed defensive fronts.
That's it, exactly. The difference is the quality of competition that has forged their current rosters. And again, the trench mismatch is critical.
Clemson's O-line is banged up.
Injury depleted and facing a South Carolina defensive front that is top tier for sack rate and pressure generation. This is a pure trench mismatch that South Carolina, as the battle-tested home team, is poised to exploit.
So the market has correctly identified that the 4-7 record is irrelevant.
The underlying number 2 SOS and the O-line D-line metrics make South Carolina minus 2.5 the clear metrics-backed choice over the rivalry coin flip narrative.
Okay, finally, let's wrap this section with the Pac-12 clash. Oregon versus Washington. Oregon minus 6.5, total of 51.5. And like the Michigan game, the environment is the defining factor here.
High impact rating of 7 due to continuous rain and showers in Seattle. We need a tactical metric on rain, and Analyst 2 provides the crucial historical trend here. Oregon's spread offense, which is all about speed and precision passing, historically shows significant regression in wet conditions. He cites specific struggles earlier in the season against defenses that employed heavy zone and forced them to operate in the muck.
And Washington.
Washington, by contrast, prefers a more methodical, pro-style offense that is less dependent on perfect timing and dry hands.
So the rain slows Oregon down, forcing them into a grind they are not schematically optimized for, and simultaneously boosts Washington's ability to control the clock.
It dictates a defensive, low-scoring outcome. The historical trend, cited across multiple data models by analysts too, is that the under hits at a remarkable 63% clip in games, with both significant precipitation and sustained wind over 10 miles per hour.
And both analysts 2 and 3 lean towards the under here.
Strongly, under 51.5. We follow the historical weather-driven trend. The environment dictates the play.
Now we move to the blowouts. When the spread is massive, the public often struggles to bet it, right, believing the number is just too high.
But sometimes, the metrics confirm that a team is just incapable of competing. And we can use these conflicts to identify the highest value prop bets.
Let's start with Notre Dame versus Stanford. ND minus 32.5.
This is pure confirmation of dominance. There is no analytical debate. Analyst 1 gives the full game spread cover a 10 out of 10 confidence. Analyst 2 gives it a 9 out of 10. We have to move past the spread and focus on the associated prop value because that's where the best return lies.
So what's the single most damning metric for Stanford's defense that locks in this blowout?
It's their inability to hold the red zone. Stanford is 16th worst nationally in red zone scoring allowed. They are just non-competitive inside the 20-yard line.
Giving up touchdowns on what, almost every trip?
Nearly 95% of opponent red zone opportunities. And when you combine this defensive incompetence with Notre Dame's game script early lead, heavy rushing in the second half, it perfectly sets up running back Jalen Love.
Love is elite. 7.1 yards per carry, 17 TDs. With the game script demanding clock management, and Stanford's defense being completely non-competitive near the goal line, the volume should be through the roof.
Precisely. Analyst 1 calls the prop bet Jalen Love over 135.5 rushing yards the best bet of the entire slate.
Wow.
He's gone over 135 yards in 4 of his last 5 games, and the volume will be guaranteed in the third and fourth quarters against a defense that can't stack the box efficiently. The combination of guaranteed volume and opponent inefficiency makes this a high-probability proposition.
Okay, let's look at Texas Tech versus West Virginia. TTU minus 23.5, another high-confidence consensus cover. What is the fundamental metric mismatch that confirms this spread?
Again, it is purely the run game mismatch, but this time it's about defensive bottom-tier performance. Texas Tech running back Cameron Dickey operates against the nation's worst run defense.
The worst in the country.
The worst. West Virginia allows 153 rushing yards per game and struggles immensely against power run concepts. So when Texas Tech, an offense that emphasizes power runs and play-action boots, faces a defense incapable of stopping the basic ground game, they will systematically control the tempo and run up the score.
Control the time of possession, run at will. It makes that minus 23.5 spread manageable.
Completely.
Now, let's synthesize the high conviction. Anytime touchdown targets across the entire slate based on these red zone usage trends and opponent vulnerability.
Yeah, we can tier these based on the analyst's specific breakdowns of red zone funnel rates.
Give us the S-tier core plays, the highest probability targets besides Jalen Love.
Meg Lemon, the USC wide receiver. He's a Biletnikoff finalist, already has 10 TDs, and is the absolute clear red zone funnel in USC's high-octane offense.
And they project to score a lot today.
Well over 40 points against a middling UCLA pass defense. Specifically, his last 5 touchdowns have come on 7-yard out routes or goal line fades, and the coverage he faces today ranks 98th against that specific route tree.
His usage rate in those high-leverage scoring areas guarantees opportunities.
That level of detail, identifying the specific route tree vulnerability, is what makes a prop play sharp.
What about the high-value dual threats, where the market often misprices the value of a non-traditional weapon?
We identify 2. First is Jaden Bow, the Florida running back. Florida is playing FSU, but Bow is the undisputed RB1 and their primary goal line hammer.
They'll have to lean on him.
Heavily, especially near the end zone, because FSU's secondary is too good to challenge consistently through the air. Bow is the clearest path to a Gators touchdown.
And the second?
Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback we highlighted earlier, his dual threat role, especially designed runs near the goal line, often makes him mispriced in ATTD markets. But he is responsible for an enormous share of Vandy's offensive production, especially in the red zone against Tennessee's defense.
And finally, let's revisit that injury upgrade play, the player whose ATTD probability sees an immediate boost purely because of the opponent's depth depletion.
That's Jeremiah Smith, the Ohio State wide receiver. Analyst 1 lists him as a primary red zone receiver, and he is returning fully healthy against a Michigan defense that is severely compromised at both safety.
With Rod Moore out.
At linebacker, with Ernest Hausman out, those losses directly compromise their ability to cover quick slants, RPO glances, and fades. Smith gets an immediate bump in probability due to that critical loss of high-level coverage ability in the most critical area of the field.
We have executed the deep dive, broken down the dialectics between the analysts, followed the sharp money signals, and isolated the objective metrics that override historical reputation and narrative. Let's finalize the sharp card consensus for Week 14.
Our consensus card is defined by strategic skepticism. It's about fading the favorites whose metrics or environment dictate caution.
Starting with the environmental factor that compresses variance, Michigan plus 10.5.
Fading Ohio State because the heavy snow neutralizes their primary personnel advantage and favors Michigan's preferred style of play.
Next, the SEC run game collision, Auburn plus 5.5.
Fading Alabama because the cold, hard data shows Bama is 122nd nationally in generating yards after contact, which is a guaranteed failure point against Auburn's elite, fourth-ranked defensive front.
The sharp money flip, Vanderbilt plus 2.5.
We align with the majority of the handle that validates Vandy's power rating, which is underpinned by a legitimate top 5 strength of schedule.
The injury-driven blowout, Oklahoma minus 11.5.
LSU's decimated offensive line faces the nation's sack leader. That guarantees a cascade failure of negative plays and turnovers, leading to the cover.
And our high-conviction, metric-perfect prop of the day, based on game script and defensive incompetence.
Jalen Love over 135.5 rushing yards against Stanford.
So if we have to identify the biggest square trap of the day, the thing the public is most likely to lose money on today, it's ignoring the environmental and quantifiable deficiencies.
Absolutely. The trap is betting the traditional superior talent composite like Ohio State minus 10.5 or Alabama minus 5.5, and entirely ignoring critical variables like heavy snow or profound measurable run game inefficiency.
Like Bama's 122nd national ranking in YAC.
Exactly. The square sees the records and the AP rankings. The sharp sees the situational metrics and the line movement that is already priced in the weather and the trench mismatch.
That brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to mull over this week, long after the dust settles on the rivalry slate.
We dedicated a lot of time discussing South Carolina, a 4-7 team being favored over 6-5 Clemson, purely because South Carolina had the second toughest schedule in the nation.
The most profound finding from this entire stack of source material is that divergence between a team's superficial win-loss record and its true underlying strength.
And it forces us to ask, when evaluating any team's season, are you paying too much attention to the final win-loss column, which is often misleading?
And not enough to the unforgiving, objective data of strength of schedule.
That SOS metric is the true measure of a team's talent and its proven ability to compete under pressure.
If you only see 4-7, you miss the sharp play. If you see number 2 SOS, you understand why the market flipped 5 points. You understand a true measure of their battle-tested roster. Thanks for joining us in the War Room.
Good luck on the card. Stay sharp.